welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a knitty, yarny podcast from the southwest of France. I am a knitwear designer and in this podcast I usually talk about things that I'm making relating to fiber arts. So, yay! I have a little episode for you this week. I will try to go as smoothly and as clearly as I possibly can. I have a design release to show you. I have a finished project and I also have one work in progress that I want to show you. A work in progress that is almost done, but I decided to record this podcast in advance. So I'm recording it a week in advance because if not, this project would have been finished and I wouldn't have really started the next one, so I wouldn't have much to show. So that's why we're a little offset here, but I really wanted to show you this project. I will also talk a little bit about spinning, some update on my spinning projects, and in the end I will also briefly talk about Patreon and what's happening this month on Patreon. So yay. Without further ado, you can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, if you are not interested in a certain section, if you would like to see something specifically, you can look at the time that is written in front of the topic, and if you click on it, it will the video will load at the time that you selected. And I also put links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media and my patterns for sale on different shops. So, yay. I'm going to start with a new design that I released, and it is the cardigan that I'm wearing, and it's the Palmire cardigan. And so, here it is. So, it's a really fun knit, and I'm going to walk you through its construction in a bit because it's really fun to do, and I might not be able to explain it in the clearest way but here we go. So it's easier if I take it off. So it's a cardigan that is knitted with a light fingering weight yarn and a kid mohair. In my case, I used ID's yarns. It's a collaboration with them. They sent me the yarn so I could create the design with their yarn. I used their light fingering base, which is a blend of non-superwash merino and silk, which is a very light fingering / lace weight. It has 600 meters to 100 gram, and we decided to pair it with their mohair, which is a really fluffy mohair. But if you want to use a single yarn or any different yarn, you would need a sport weight yarn. And the way this is worked is you start with the lace panel that you see here on the back. So this is a really simple lace. It is worked on right side and wrong side rows, but it's very intuitive, and there are a lot of rows which are just knit or just some knits and purls, so it's fairly intuitive. And some of my testers were mostly beginners and they didn't have any issue with it. So you knit this back panel, and as you can see, it's the lace motif twice separated by slipped stitches, and you work it up until the desired height for your back. And once you reach the back, you split it in two and you continue the two lace motif here on the front. You can do them separately, you can do them at the same time if you like. And yeah, basically it's the lace edges of the front that you knit downwards. So it's similar to the Servion cardigan, which is a design I released last year, in the sense that it's a cardigan sort of drop shoulder that goes very high on your neck and then just falls closely here. That's this shape. And once you have done your lace front, you have this sort of snake of lace, right? That goes to the back and to the front. And so what you do is you pick up stitches all around the lace edge. Here, as you can see, here you pick up stitches here all along the lace edging, on the back and on the front, like so. And you start to knit horizontally, like this, from both sides. So the rest of the cardigan is knitted sideways in stockinette. You have some short rows on the shoulder. It's a bit difficult to show. You have some short rows on the shoulder here to sort of round the shoulder and set it up. And you basically just knit until the desired length or width, because you are knitting all of this together. So it's a lot of stitches. Don't be fooled by the weird construction. You do have a lot of stitches on a needle at one time, but you don't have them for a long period of time because you are working a quarter of your bust circumference. So the pattern does tell you dimensions, but if you want to adjust ease or bust circumference, you can just knit however long you want it. And basically, once you reach the point which you are satisfied with the bust circumference, you need to close the seam here. And you do a 3-needle bind off to join the front and the back like this here, basically, together here. And once you do that 3-needle bind off, you only have the stitches that remain for the sleeve, and you continue knitting the sleeve downwards, and it's a straight sleeve with some balloon effect at the end. And I knitted a very long cuff so that I could fold it over. There you go. As you knit the body, I forgot, you do knit this ribbed edge sideways as well. That's it for the general construction, and I'm really happy because, so as I was writing the pattern, it's a bit difficult to show because it's so drapey. The yarn is absolutely beautiful. Basically, it has a lot of drape, as you can see. It doesn't stay at all. That's why it's so difficult to show you, but it's very light and airy. And so soft. I really, really like it. I highly recommend knitting this in a combination of light fingering and lace weight. Whether it's mohair or it's alpaca, you can do a lot of very interesting blends, and yeah, the result is stunning. It's also very beautiful if you use a sport weight yarn on its own, but if you want a drapey thing, you really benefit from using a light fingering and a lace weight together. So, as I was saying, the pattern is fairly simple. I mean, maybe the only thing that you really need to pay attention to is picking up stitches, because you do pick up a lot of stitches. So if you don't like that, yeah, that's not maybe for you. That's maybe not for you. The lace is very simple. And yeah, it's pretty much stockinette. But I was a bit conscious when writing the pattern that it might be confusing to explain the construction. It's nothing extraordinary, but you still need to visualize a little bit. So what I did is I took step-by-step pictures. So every step of the way, as I was knitting my sample, I took pictures of every construction step so that when you knit the design, if you're unsure of what you're supposed to do, you can check the corresponding step in pictures. So I did that, hoping that it would make things clearer. But I'm really happy because during the test knitting process, I was expecting some confusion still and to have to work on things to make them clearer. But no one said a peep. We had some adjustments to make, but construction-wise, my testers understood right away what they needed to do, and they did a fantastic job. I started a test knit, and weeks after weeks, I was like, no one is telling me that they don't understand. I'm like, hello? Is everyone okay? Are you all right there? And yeah, they were. They understood right away. So I'm really, really happy because the pattern seems to be very clear in that sense. So if you're a bit scared of the construction, don't be, because it works very well. And if you look at the pictures, if you just do what's written, it will click, because it's very logical once you get what you're supposed to do. And it's really fun to do, and I have so many ideas of using this construction, because you can make anything. You can use that thing to make cables, or I have an idea for a color block cardigan. So the center lace here will be in one color, one side will be in one color, the other side in another color, and maybe the cuffs and the ribbing at the end can be in a fourth color. You can make something with cables. So yeah, I'm really happy that this construction worked, because I knew it worked, but I'm really happy it's well understood, because it really is inspiring for me. And yeah, it makes a really cozy cardigan. As you can see, it's very close on the back of the neck here, and it's very snuggly, and I'm so happy that I can show it to you now, because I can wear it. I was afraid to wear it, and so it stayed folded in my wardrobe for a long time, and the yarn didn't make any weird creases, so yay for drape. So that's how this cardigan works. You can see a lot of different testers versions. They use different yarns, so you can get an idea. Some testers modified a few things. One of them made a color block version. One of them didn't do the sideway ribbing. So if you don't like that effect, I kind of like it. It looks a bit like a what's the name of that? I don't remember. Accordion? Do you say accordion in English as well? If you don't like this, one of my testers just did stockinette to the bottom, and then she picked up stitches all around the bottom, and she knitted a standard ribbing vertically, and it looks really cool as well. And it's also super easy to modify. So the pattern does tell you when you can adjust length. You can make the front a bit shorter than the back, which is the way I did it. If you have, if you're bustier, if you have a more significant difference between your upper bust and your full bust measurement, you can actually knit the front a bit longer so that they don't override. And yeah, all of this is noted in the pattern to help you personalize it to your body and taste. And it's a really fun knit, and I really enjoyed making it, and I'm so happy that it's out, and I hope you like it too. So yeah, I absolutely adore the yarn. So like I said, it's a blend of merino, non-superwash merino, silk, and then a kid mohair. And Heidi Heidi's yarns, it's the second time I collaborate with them, but I've knitted other designs with their yarns that I just bought because I really like their color sense. Their colors are very true in the sense that if they say it's burgundy, it's the burgundy, you know. It's like, well, there's 20 billion different gorgeous types of burgundies, but they're very the shades don't overlap. There's no, it's I don't know, there's a personality to each of their colors which I really appreciate. And this is the Toscan colorway, and it's like a ochre caramel type of color, and it's really, really lovely. And yeah, I'm very happy with it. So the pattern is available on Ravelry, and if you like it and you need a little help, there is 15% off for the release with the code Palmire. Palmire is an old-fashioned name, and it's like a palm tree sort of word, and so it just makes me think of that, basically, with the lace. And yeah, I will put everything in the description down below. The pattern is also available on my PayHip store with the Pay What Works system. And if you are in France, the pattern is also available as part of a kit from IVID. So yeah. So if you are in France, I don't know how their shipping is at the moment. As you know, if you're in the UK, we're upset with you, so we're not shipping to you anymore. No, it's a bit of a mess, but hopefully it will be resolved quickly. But yeah, I think I've said everything about it. Just trying to think if I forgot anything, but I don't think I did. So I can move on to a finished project, which is my Into the Woods sweater, which you have seen me knit like at the end of December. I do believe I showed it in one of the January podcasts episodes. And yes, this is a design by Bee Mandarins, Melody Hoffman. It is now published. So Bee Mandarins, she has a Patreon page, and on her Patreon page she gives you the patterns in advance. But now this one has actually been published. And so it's a yoke sweater that is knitted in Gilliatt from Derrière Natura, which is a worsted weight yarn. It has a DK weight meterage, but I do find it's too tight at a DK weight gauge from my taste. And yeah, it features this tree motif, which is you're basically pulling loops of contrast color. So my main color is cedar, and my contrast color is eucalyptus. It's less contrasting in real life because the colors are a bit more heathered. On the camera, it's just really striking. It's not as sharp in real life, but it's still very nice. And yeah, so maybe I can slip it on to show you. It's a little bit of a fashion show this episode. I'm constantly going to put things on and off. But yeah, so I knitted size 3, I think, which gives me more ease than what the pattern intends. And my gauge is also looser. Because like I said, I do like Gilliatt at a looser gauge. If not, it's a bit too firm, and I like it when it's a bit more drapey. It's absolutely ugly with this t-shirt, but you get the idea. There's some nasty folds from blocking here, but it's gonna go away. But yeah, I really like it. I wanted it to be loose and comfy, and it's exactly what I got. Yeah, my gauge is loose there. Also, I didn't swatch because I don't care. there is always the confusion between swatch and gauge. And I've talked about it before, many people talk about it. You don't need to swatch to care about gauge. I feel like there's often some sort of confusion, and people think that they don't understand what gauge is, and so they think that we ask them to do this little swatch, to make a square in stockinette, and then if they do it, then everything is alright. And I see sometimes in my testing project, or when people are knitting my designs, if something is wrong with the sides, and I ask them to check the gauge so I can see if it's my numbers that are wrong or not. Sometimes people are confused and they say, well, yes, but I did swatch. Like, that's not that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if in the project the gauge is still right. And yeah, I think that there's a confusion. People think that you can only care about gauge if you swatch, and that's not true. When you talk about gauge, about what it does to your knitting, so gauge, it's the size of your stitches. That's it. That's just what it is. It's very geometric, mathematical thingy. It's how wide a stitch is, how long a stitch is. That's just what gauge is. It has an impact of the size of your project, obviously, but also on how it looks. Is it loose and drapey, or is it dense and super tight and strong? It also has an impact on how much yarn you use. And when you talk about all those things, people just dismiss it, saying, oh, but I don't like to swatch. And yeah, me neither. But it's two different things. You can care about gauge and think about it, even if you don't swatch. I very rarely swatch. I only swatch, even when I'm designing, unless I need a specific, like I'm grading something peculiar, and I need to grade it beforehand to make sure it all works and to be very precise. Or I swatch to test motifs, like patterns and stuff. But if a sweater is mostly stockinette, or if I know what I'm about to get, I very rarely swatch, because it's going to be the gauge is going to be, and that's about it. I can sort of tell, depending on the yarn, depending on what I want. Do I want it to be loose? Is it socks? Do I want them to be super tight? And I can tell roughly the gauge I'm going to get. So I very rarely swatch, but I still care a lot about gauge. And yeah, I think people need to really separate the two and grasp the concept, because it doesn't matter if you do a little swatch and then you're gauging the project, you completely ignore it and you think it doesn't matter. The thing is, when you swatch, you either do it right or you don't do it at all. And the thing is, doing it right, it means making a big one, right? And you have to reproduce the exact same condition in which you are going to knit the project. So if you make a teeny tiny thing, it's a bit useless. And besides maybe checking the color and everything. But yeah, you either do it right or you just gauge what your gauge will be, basically. And the thing is, when it's smaller projects like mittens or socks, you don't swatch. The thing is, swatching for socks, since you have to swatch in the same way as you will be knitting, well, you're just making socks. So you might as well just do the sock and check, and you can see if it's smaller or bigger. And then you pay attention to the gauge on the real thing. But you shouldn't consider that there won't be any gauge issue or that gauge will not matter on your project just because you did a test swatch. It's completely irrelevant. And just because you don't swatch, it doesn't mean you're doing a mess. You can be very conscious of gauge and very mindful of it. Check it, take it into account to have the project that you want without swatching. It's two different things. So yeah, that's something that I just wanted to address quickly. I didn't swatch for this sweater. I still know what my gauge is now that I knitted it. I know it's looser than what the pattern's supposed to be. I know it means that my sweater is bigger because my stitches are bigger, and it means that my yarn is not as stiff. But I didn't swatch, and it doesn't mean that I did a mess. But yeah, if you're not testing, little bump here, blocking. If you're not, obviously, if you're testing a pattern, or if you really want something to be precise and you're not as comfortable, then yes, swatch. But don't think that because you swatched, it's all okay. Because yeah, like I said, sometimes I see that there's a little confusion because I'm gonna say, like, someone is going to tell me that the size of their project is wrong, and I'm going to ask them just to check the gauge, and they're going to notice that it's not right anymore, and they're going to say something like, but I don't understand, I swatched. And like, it doesn't matter if you swatched. It's completely irrelevant. If you swatched and your gauge on the actual project is wrong, it's irrelevant that you swatched. It doesn't change a single thing. If you didn't swatch in the right circumstances, and if you don't pay attention to your gauge on your actual project, you can do all the swatches that you want. It's not gonna have any sort of impact on your actual knitting. You might be able to tell and to check. That's what a swatch is. It helps you check and adjust. But if it doesn't mean that gauge is not relevant, and checking gauge is not relevant on the actual project. It's much more relevant than doing a swatch. I much prefer someone that doesn't swatch but then actually check the gauge on the project than someone who will swatch and then not really grasp the concept of gauge and not understand that it just means that the size of their stitches are a certain way, and that if they're not the right way on the actual project, it doesn't really matter that they made this stockinette square before. So yeah, a little side rant about gauge and swatching. I'm sure I was very confusing, but maybe some of it was understandable, I hope. Anyway, I really like that sweater. I don't think I have much else to say. It's a fairly straightforward knit, and it makes a really cozy sweater. I really like Be Mandarin's newest design as well. The one with the braid on the raglan. It's the similar stitch, but it's like all stacked up here on the raglan. And she also posted that on Patreon. It's available there. But I don't quite know what yarn to use, and I don't want to, I'm sorry, that t-shirt is really cute, but it's too cropped for me. And so I constantly have to put it back down. I don't know what yarn to use. She used 4 or 5 strands of Newton. I'm not one for holding too many strands of yarns together. I mean, 2 strands is more than enough for me. Yes, so I don't quite know what yarn to use. If I can make it, but I have this one and I really like it. And that's it for my finished project. And I can move on to my work in progress. And it is a sweater that I think I've shown you last time. And it's almost done. it's my last winter design, so to say, and then I'm going to move on to more summer and winter projects. Summer and winter. Oh God, spring and summer projects. Maybe I'll have to do something else first, but we'll see. We'll see. I wanted a really cozy sweater. And I wanted to use this yarn, which is the original yarn base from Deborah Les Petites Potions, which is a French indie dyer. She lives nearby me, currently underwater. But we have some nasty rains here in the south, which is okay. But yeah, we're a bit mushy, watery thingy. She has that yarn, which is a gorgeous yarn. I really like it. I have a bunch of different colors. I asked her to dye me some more because I really like it. And I got this. It's a non-superwash. My brain isn't working. Can you tell? It's a non-superwash Highland wool, so it's Peruvian wool. It's a fingering weight, light fingering, and it has this black ply every once in a while, which is really cool. And yeah, I really like it, and I want to use this base everywhere, but I wanted to try pairing it with mohair, thinking that it would sort of mute the thing and add some texture interest. So I decided to pair it with this mohair, which is pearl, which is a very light grey. It's a kid mohair and silk, and pair them together, and it did this. I really like it. I just find it so interesting how in some places it looks like there's more grey, in other places it looks like there's more black. And as you can see here on the sleeve, since the circumference is different, it started making some sort of stripes in the same way as some variegated yarn are mohair everywhere. Some variegated yarn are pooling when you're knitting them. So they did that as well here, and I really like it. So this is a really basic jumper. I want you to do a really simple one. It's a drop shoulder, and it has some sit stitch detail on the shoulders. It has this V-neck, and then it's pretty much stockinette party, and at the bottom of the front you have a sit stitch rectangle just before the hem. Then on the sleeves are very loose, and you have some sit stitch as well that is coming down. It's not blocked, so it's a bit difficult. That is coming down from the shoulder. The sleeves, there are some decreases here at the top, and then at the end I gathered them slightly. I didn't want them to be too tight. I really wanted a loose, gooey sweater. And what I wanted to do is have folded hems. So basically you knit a bit of stockinette, you do a purl row, then you knit more stockinette, and then you fold it inside and you whip stitch it. You have the live stitches on your needle and you attach them here on the wrong side. And it just makes this really neat double folded hem. And I did that on the cuffs as well, which is really cute. And I was able to do it on the neck. And I really like the result. As you can see here, you have the center of the V-neck. Did you see my sheep? You have the center of the it's growing back inside, and it's folded over and seamed. And I really liked that. I really liked the simplicity and neatness of that. If I make such a simple design, it needs to be quite detailed. And yeah, more trying on things. As you can see, it looks good with that t-shirt, doesn't it? This way. I never know what to wear with V-necks. That's my thing. It's my problem. I really like tight necklines. And so if I make a V-neck jumper, I'm like, but I'm cold here. So what do I do here? And but I'm not cold enough to wear a scarf inside, you know, so I'm like, what the hell do I do? And if you have something with a collar, it needs to, because if it's just a round t-shirt that stops here, it's weird. And so I think that this is okay now, isn't it? If I make that face, of course it's not okay, but maybe you could tell me if that looks good. And yeah, as you can see, sleeves very wide, and at the end they just gather slightly. Of course you could gather them a bit more, but I didn't want them too tight because I wanted it to be loosey-goosey, and I wanted to be able to do this and not cut all blood circulation. Yeah, you can see here the shoulder going down into the sleeve, and something fun happening here. Since on the front you have that seat stitch panel, and that seat stitch has a shorter row gauge than stockinette, it naturally makes the front lift a bit compared to the back. It just creates an angle. There will be bust darts here so that the front doesn't lift double if you do have fuller bust considerably. It's not considerably. The thing is, if your full bust is just 7-8 centimeter bigger, like more than 7-8 centimeter, I don't know. It's not a lot. It's the difference between your upper bust and your full bust doesn't have to be that big for it to do this. So it's not even about having a considerable difference. It's about just having a bit of a difference. So there will be bust darts, so that you just get the lift from the sit stitch, but not too much that it just distorts the sweater. So yeah, and the V-neck. I need to make the other sleeve and finish it and grade it. I usually grade my sweaters before I knit the samples, but since this was a simple design, I just let it be. And I shouldn't have, because now my brain is dead. I don't know, I have a very limited brain space at the moment, and I need to make sure that the V is there. And it's not very difficult, but it's just, I can't seem to think for more than 10 minutes about the same topic at the moment. Maybe it showed in this episode, but I have a really hard time focusing and understanding things. It's been like this for a week or so. I need to rest a little bit, I think. And but I'm feeling very creative, so that's kind of the problem. I'm having loads of ideas, but I don't have the logical and the brain power to make sure they will work. So that's a bit dangerous. But hopefully I will be able to grade it fast enough. When you see this, because I'm filming this a week in advance, when you see this, I do hope that the YouTube bot will not think that I'm constantly taking off clothes. So yeah, you will see this and the sweater will probably be finished, hopefully. And yes, I can move on later to spring and summer things, which I'm very happy about because they do knit up quicker because they don't have sleeves. But yes, so this will be the Ori sweater. I hesitated a lot because I usually try to pick names that are not already overused in Ravelry, because if I pick I don't know, if I pick blue bonnet or whatever on Ravelry and there's like 80 pages results, it's like it's not great. And Ori, there was a few results, because Ori, if you don't know, Ori and the Blind Forest and the Will of the Wisps, I think is the new one. It's a video game. It's a really cute video game. It's a platformer. It's cute. It's okay. It got really popular. It has a beautiful soundtrack. I really love the music. But style-wise, it's a big generic fantasy thing, but it is cute. It's just very popular. And so on Ravelry, there's a few patterns for plushies of the character. It's like a rabbit. And so if you look for Ori on Ravelry, you will see a few results already. And so that's why I was hesitant to call the sweater like this. But then it made too much sense because I do like the video game. This base name is original. And also seed stitch in French, we say point de riz, so rice stitch. I think rice stitch in English is something else. Let me know if I'm wrong, because I know there's rice stitch in English, but it's not that, I think. Anyway, this is seed stitch, but in French we say point de riz, like rice. And so ori, you get it, basically. And so it was just too fitting. So in the end, I will call it the Ori sweater. And it's just O-R-I. And that way, maybe it will actually be not too difficult to pronounce. But yeah, I really like it. I'm really happy that I was able to fold the neckline. Like I said, it's such a simple garment that when you're doing simple things, it's a struggle, because I always say, like, is it really interesting? And so that's why I can't help putting stuff everywhere. But yeah, it means that I'm very peculiar about the details. So I guess that's that. Yeah, that's it for my knitting work in progress. And I did want to talk a little bit about spinning yarns. And I don't think I will follow every fiber that I spin and talk about them. I'm cold. But I do want from time to time to make you a summary of what I've been doing, tell you about my struggle, about my progress, and show you some beautiful fibers that I have gotten. And so this is the spinning report of the moment. So my latest spin was this. This is a fiber from Wolle, which is a German indie dyer. She dyes a lot of sock yarn. Well, they dye a lot of sock yarn in really fun variegated colors, and they do sometimes have fibers. And I got this fiber ages ago. It was a blend of 70% merino and 30% nylon. And so what I did is I did a 3-ply. It was my first 3-ply, true 3-ply on the wheel. So I spun each single and then I plied them all three together, because my idea was that this was my first yarn that I spun with a project in mind. I want to knit socks with this. I had 150 grams, which is quite a lot. And so I'm going to knit socks with it. So that's why I did a 3-ply, because I thought it would be solid enough, durable enough, and I'm quite happy with the thickness. I was afraid it would be much thicker, but actually no, it's pretty much a fingering weight. I think I'm pretty good on that. And so it's not completely dry yet. I need to let it hang a little bit more, and then I'm gonna knit socks because I have to knit plain socks because I want to experiment a few things with construction and heels. You'll see later. But I'm gonna knit socks with this. However, it's alright because it's a 3-ply, but my singles were still super weak, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's normal or if I'm doing something wrong. I moved my ratio, so now I'm on the middle ratio of my wheel. I can't understand why I would need to go even faster. Maybe I need to lift my mother of all Maybe that's it. The thing is, my singles, I feel they're still weak. I know a lot of spinners have the opposite problem, but for me, it's really that. There's not enough twist in my singles. It's okay, but I don't have... When I look at some handspun 2-ply, they're really twisty and bouncy, and they look cool. And I want that result, and I can't get it. My plies are always a bit loose. And it's not the plying, because when I ply, I'm quite I'm going quite twisty. So it is with the singles that are not twisted enough. And I don't know what I need to do. I think I need to lift my mother of all. I think that's the problem, because I have the Sonata from Kromsky, and the mother of all is adjustable, and I have it at the lower setting. Maybe I need to put it higher so it has more tension and it goes faster. Does that work like this with the drive band? If the drive band is stretched a bit more, is it going to go faster? I don't know. Because I'm already on the middle ratio and it's not twisty enough. And maybe I need to thread a little bit faster, because I do notice that I automatically started threading very slowly. And yeah, I don't think I really need to buy the lace flyer already. Like, it seems a bit absurd to me that I would need such high ratios so soon just to spin a normal light fingering weight single. So yeah, maybe I do need to move my mother of all. I'm gonna try that. That's the thing, because so I have this. I placed an order at Regenbogenwolle. My German is non-existent. It's a German dyer, and they have such gorgeous fibers. They're stunning. They have amazing colorways, different blends. It's absolutely beautiful. Their website is only in German. But I managed. I used Google Translate at some point, and I managed to order. I don't know if they must ship to Europe. It seems to be working, because I placed an order at Yarnflakes, and it seems to be okay. It went through Royal Mail, and it seems to be coming. And so it sort of works, but at the same time it's a bit of a mess. But they're in Germany, so that's fine. Best friends. It's gorgeous. They have absolutely stunning colorway, and I placed an order. This is the colorway Sea Glass, and it's on Corriedale silk and linen. Look at that. So beautiful. And they sent me a sample. I feel so seen. I can't quite tell which colorway this is. I'm trying to find it on the website, but with the screen color, I'm not sure I can see. It has some silk, definitely. Like, this is silk. It's so gorgeous. Like, and there were candies in the package as well. So I'm like, you send me candies and you send me this color. So if you've watched some of my podcasts, or if you know me at all, you know that if you send me a sample or anything in this color, I pretty much will love you forever. It's so gorgeous. So I'm gonna spin that sample, trying to fix my twist issue and trying to get enough twist in my singles. Once I've done that, hopefully successfully, I will move on to this, which is fiber dyed by Les Petites Potions, which is the dyer behind the yarn for this. She's local to me, and she does yarn monthly clubs, basically. So it's either yarn or fiber, and you can choose from a ton of different bases in the yarn. And basically she has a theme. This year the theme is cakes. So every month she will post a picture of her color inspiration and their cakes and cookies and stuff and she will dye a color, a mystery color based on that image. And what I really like about her clubs is that you get the choice of different fibers. So I want to get the fiber club from her this year to sort of accompany my spinning wheel learning journey. Because so you can choose, every month you can choose, you either have a merino, so the classic fiber, or you have a special fiber every month, and it changes every month. And I thought that was really cool because it will allow me to discover new fiber and try out new things. I thought it was a really fun thing that I could do to get her club this year so that I could spin the yarn and just learn as the club evolves. And so for January, this was it. And so the inspiration picture was blue and green and grayish tints, and it's exactly that. If I compare this to the picture that she put when we bought the club, it's perfect. It's exactly that. It's perfect. It's quite funny how she captured exactly the picture that she used for inspiration. It's really interesting. So you know what you get when you order from her. Like you say, I want these colors, you will get these colors. So yeah, and this fiber is 50% grey alpaca, 50% silk. So it's pretty much a slob, right? Super drapey. Super drapey. And it's so beautiful. I haven't spun alpaca yet, so that will be an adventure. But absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to try it. So as soon as I do my sample and hopefully fix my twist issue, I'm gonna try and lift. I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna lift you as high as you can go, and we'll see how you behave now. I'm gonna break it, aren't I? Yeah, stunning little thing. And that's it for my spinning adventures at the moment. And yeah, I want to finish the episode by talking about Patreon a little bit. So if you don't know, I have a Patreon page where so you can support me, but mostly it's a way for you to buy patterns. So every month you can join for a different amount, and you get 1 or 2 patterns of your choice. So if you want to buy a certain pattern a given month, you can join Patreon. This way you have the pattern that you wanted, and you also have access to different content. And every month I make a specific video on a theme. So it's not podcast, it's a little bit more organized. It makes a bit more sense, I hope, than the podcasts. And when you join Patreon, you can see all the previous videos that I have uploaded since October 2019. So there's a lot of different topics, a lot of different things that I shared, that we discussed. And this month we're talking about Palmire. So I thought it would be interesting to show you the creation of the design from start to finish. So as from the swatches to, because yes, I did swatch for this, to knitting the sample, writing the instructions, how I figured out writing the instructions for this. I also talk a little bit about picking up stitches from a pattern instruction point of view. You may have noticed that sometimes pattern tell you pick up 2 out of 3 stitches, and sometimes the patterns tell you to pick up X amount of stitches without giving you a ratio and just saying you do that and shush. But so I tried to explain why we may choose one instruction over the other, because in this pattern you have both. And so that's why I explained it in the Patreon video. And yeah, I talk a little bit about grading as well. Not too much in depth. I do plan to make a grading video for Patreon, but I do mean explaining how it works and not showing you numbers, because I don't quite understand. I was watching a French podcaster and vlogger, and she's a designer as well, and someone asked her if she could show her like all the files and numbers that she had for her pattern sizing, and she was like, no. And I don't quite understand why people would want to see that. The only reason why you would want to see specific numbers, meaning X stitches for the armhole, X stitches for the bust circumference, X rows for the upper arm measurement and things, like the armhole depth. First of all, this is in the patterns, so if you just buy a patterns, you actually sort of have those numbers. And the only reason why you would need that is if you would just to take those numbers and make your own pattern with it. And that's not a thing. That's the job you need to do yourself when you're designing. You can't just take an existing graded pattern and stick up another motif on it. That's theft, and that's a lot more serious than patterns that may have motifs that sort of look alike. But yeah, so that's the thing. So yeah, I don't quite understand why you would want specific grading numbers, but I do maybe think it's interesting to explain how the logic behind grading. It's really simple in a way. It's like it's proportions. It's proportion regarding your gauge and the measurements and the stitched counts that you want. Different sizes are not proportionate to one another. That's a different thing. But in itself, the concept is very simple. But I think if you understand the logic behind it, maybe you feel a bit more comfortable when your gauge is off and you want to follow a pattern or you need to modify something. So I do talk a little bit about grading in this video as well, but it was not very pertinent for this design because I only needed to grade the armhole and the upper arm and a little bit the lace. Oh yes, the lace is bigger for the bigger sizes. But the body circumferences and everything and the length, it's pretty much you do you. So the grading was not that developed for this. Well, it was, but not in the usual sense. But I did address it a little bit more. And I do plan one day on making a specific video for Patreon. One day. I do have a lot of things coming up. So yeah, when you join Patreon, you can see these videos. I do talk in French in those videos, but I put subtitles myself. So if you select the subtitles on YouTube, they are actually intelligible, proper subtitles. They're not automatic things. And I always say the theme for the upcoming month. So Patreon is really not an engaging, like there's no, you don't have to say, that's what I meant. You can cancel your membership at any time. So you can just come 1 month and because you want a pattern and then you leave. You can come and go and check all the previous videos every time you come back. It's totally fine. That's how it's supposed to work. There are a lot of amazing makers on Patreon that do a lot of different things. And yeah, at the end of the month, I always say next month, we will talk about this. So you can decide if you want to stay or not. Yeah, that's it. I think I've talked about everything and the podcast is long enough. I can feel that my voice is going away. So yeah, I will see you in a couple of weeks, I think, when you will be seeing this episode. And I wish you a very happy rest of the day, evening, whatever applies. And I will see you soon. Bye!